Well, it's a very good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of Witzenberg Motor Talk. And first, I want to say and give a good compliment to Carl Bush for some magnificent work on the video footage from the last of our gymkhana tests that happened a little while back. You know, I think it just feels like the other day, but we've come to the end of our season now. So, well, we look forward to a new one. But you'll see, of course, Abdul is not joining me yet. He will be here. So those of you who are big fans of Abdul, don't be afraid. He'll be here soon. And we'll be talking tonight to a six-time Formula GTI champion. And to give him that introduction is not enough, because this is a man who, he's a regular commenter on the show. He's a very big fan of the show. And it's great now to have him as a guest on the show, and an all-round nice guy. He's also a regular commentator on the Gymkhana, a series of ours. But as I say that as well, we'll get into it as things go. I see the first of our comments over here from Nadia Singh, saying, "Hey Byron, hey Nadia, thanks for joining us. Tell everybody to join us, all your friends, because here's Abdul now, the master." And now, finally, Abdul's fans are very happy right now, because let me tell you one thing: they were ready to leave. They're ready to leave. They say, "Who's this Byron guy, man? He's no Abdul." That's one thing I can say, Abdul. But welcome.
No, I think good evening, everybody. Good evening, listeners. Good evening, Byron, Kyle. Thanks for all the backup work that you're doing there. We never see you, but we know that you're there. And it's actually quite interesting, because you kind of the voice that I like. So maybe you should start hosting the show from now on. But you know what, guys? On this episode, we're really going to get some insight to one of the fastest single-seater drivers in Cape Town, and a man with so much talent. It's a pity that he's in his years now. I would have loved to see him actually take on the likes of some really, really top drivers. So Byron, I'm not sure if Ashfaak has joined us already. I don't know. I'm not sure where he is. Probably just tuning his car there or something. But we can have a bit. You are there. Assalamu alaikum, Ashfaak.
I've been blind about that somewhere.
Hi, Abdul. Hi, Byron. And the man behind the scene. Hi, Kyle Bush, my champion.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Which Kyle Bush?
Hey?
Which Kyle Bush?
The real Kyle, this Kyle Bush that we have here, not that.
The real Kyle Bush. The other one is an imitation.
Yeah,
the other one is an imitation.
Yeah, our Kyle Bush is the real guy. Nadia, well, what can I say? One of our regular drivers at the Gymkhana with a Subaru. Impressive little car, impressive little girl. Not little girl, but she's a little girl in my eyes, because she's a little girl, but she's like a woman. But Nadia, thanks for always, logging in and checking, sending some nice comments there and stuff. And Ashfaak, I see there, Yusuf Ibrahim, hi champ. I don't know who Yusuf Ibrahim is, but
well, that's all the way from London, Abdul.
Oh my!
That's a very close friend of mine, Yusuf from London.
What can I say?
Actually, quite an interesting story with him too. So
yeah.
I'm sure if we'll get time, we'll get into that as well.
Well, Byron, maybe you're going to get into some of the comments tonight and some of the questions. You really think of a few questions to ask Ashfaak there. Me and Ashfaak, we come back a long way. And, I kind of know Ashfaak was probably one of the first people I met. Him, if I remember correctly, him and the Levy, Armin Levy, they were two of the people that I kind of met when I started racing clubbins very long ago. I can't even tell you how long, because it'll give Ashfaak's age away. But Ashfaak, you know what? Let's get straight into it. We don't have much time, and you got a long story to tell. Tell us how you got into motorsport. Really, how did you actually get into motor racing? Where did it start for you? I know you have a very interesting story, so let us hear all about the story.
Abdul, my story starts, firstly, I was born and raised in Pretoria, in a little dorpie called Lodium, and right next to the Swartkops racetrack. Okay. So, and of course, in those days, we weren't even allowed to go to the racetrack per se. But because it was in such close proximity, I used to literally walk through the bush and smuggle my way into Swartkops racetrack, just to see the youngsters. At that time, it was primarily just a go-kart track. And this thing just intrigued me. I was probably around 6, 7 years old when this noise of go-karts just got to me. I really needed to see what it was about. And at that time also, I think, we were fortunate in South Africa where we used to have the Formula One races come into Kailami quite often. And Abdul, when I knew Formula One was coming to Kailami, I literally used to dodge school and hitchhike from Pretoria to Kailami just to stand outside the fence and watch the Formula One cars go around the track on practice days. And, over the years, it happened, and it took time for me to really win some confidence in myself and smuggle my way into Kailami racetrack per se. Needless to say, uh, along the way, I found out that my one cousin got involved into racing. Also, a well-known racer, Abdul Jaffer, one of the foremost drivers of color in South Africa. And then to me, it was like heaven sent. I've got someone in my family that's involved in motor racing. And from that day onwards, he was my hero. I was his spanner boy. I used to pump up the tires and do whatever I need. And he was racing in Group 1 racing, which was the pinnacle of racing at that time before Group N came about. So, that's where it all started for me. He used to race in Alfa Romeo. And I took a keen interest in this, in understanding what is motor racing all about. And Abdul, not Abdul Sayed, Abdul Jaffer was a very methodical person, in the sense that he knew exactly what he wanted, and I could see how intricate racing really was. So I took note at a very young age that this is what's required for someone to go motor racing. And of course, after that, Group N. And then at the age of 17, we moved from Pretoria to Cape Town. And I was with a friend of mine. We were coming home from school one day, and we were very much into car magazines. One of my very first friends in Cape Town, by the name of Hassan Hamdullah. And we opened up the car magazine, and we saw an advert for the Camel Rookie of the Year challenge. So I said, "What is this?" So looked at it, and it said the Speed International Racing School, co-hosted by the Jim Russell Racing School, which was probably the best racing school in the world at that time.
Well,
They were coming to.
I still think today the Jim Russell School is still one of the top schools, if it's still
Yes.
around. Yeah. Ashfaak, just before you go into that story, Byron wants to address something very serious with you. Byron?
It's something about some naughtiness occurring between Belgium and Germany in a very German car, Porsche. That was being brought to my attention over here. So something it's a burning question. This.
That's my naughty friend from London, Yusuf. Anyway, we went on this wild road trip in Europe. I was fortunate enough to do that in a brand new GT4 981 Porsche GT4. My friend Yusuf is a Porsche collector, so we went. I think we were about 15 cars that did almost like a cannonball run from London right through to Europe. So we were at Spa, where I had the pleasure of taking this GT4 through its paces, and we had lots of fun. And then we were pushed for time because we needed to be at the Nürburgring at a certain time. So I said, right, Yusuf, this is it. We're going for it. And yeah, we were on the Autobahn doing over 300 Ks an hour. And while just through traffic, it made me feel like a teenager again. Needless to say, we made it to the Nürburgring in time. So yeah, that's that. Well, there were a few other things, but we'll edit that for now.
I see that Emil, I can't say this name properly over here, excuse me, was a Kiwitz. Is that the way it's said?
Yes.
He says,
Oh, no. It says Emil was a Kiwi.
Was that is Emil. That's my Polish friend.
Okay, so how do you pronounce that surname?
Well, I just call him Emil.
Okay, simpler.
I can see why. I can see why.
Yeah.
But just quickly, one thing here, I actually want to just let the everybody know, and this is when I met Ashfaak I think it was last year that you and I met officially, Ashfaak.
Yes.
And I told you the story that when I started commentating way back in 2009, my very first race I commentated on was the second heat of the Formula Libre race. It was April 2009. It must have been the second or third race meeting of the year, and you were in that race. And I remember your name because I think you came through the field to finish second in that second race of the day. That was my very first commentary I ever did. So, and then finally, 10 years later, I meet the man himself live in person.
Actually, you're right, Byron. That was probably, if I finished second, I remember racing a few races in between. And in 2009, I decided to do a few races. And the first race I entered, I finished third. The second race was second. And the last race I ever did, I won. And we were racing against these mighty Dodges from America with the 3.2 liter Dodge V6 engine. So, and I was up against them, in a 2-liter Formula GTI. So, with a bit of ring rust, I really had to work for it to come through. I managed to finish second, but I remember it was quite an enjoyable race. I think July of that year was my last race when I decided to retire for good. But obviously that didn't last too long.
Until recently, yes.
Ashfaak?
Yes.
Your friend Claudio Piazza Musso says hi. I just want to say something about this Claudio Piazza Musso.
That's a legend.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? When I was younger and I always used to hear this name, Claudio Piazza Musso, I thought, you know what? That is such a good racing name. I am sure this gentleman actually changed his name to Claudio Piazza Musso because it was so like a real racing name. Like it sounds fast. If you think about it, just say it. I mean, Claudio Piazza Musso. I mean, if I was a commentator, I would just love to say that name. So I'm thinking of maybe changing my name also to something like, I don't know, Claudia Abdul Sayed or something. I'm not too sure.
I've got a better solution.
Oh, okay.
When I grow up, I want to be like Claudio.
Okay. Well, you got a far way to grow up, Ashfaak. You know what?
Claudio Piazza Musso, just for the listeners' intake, Claudio Piazza Musso is a South African 1990 Formula 4 South African champion. And I think you had David Perrell on your show a couple of weeks now. Claudio manages a lot of young top racing drivers. In fact, at the moment, a lot of the top race drivers in South Africa are managed by Claudio or have come through Claudio's hands. So a man that's got quite a bit of clout in South African motorsport. He knows a thing or two. So thank you for tuning in and listening this evening, Claudio. Great to have you on the show.
Well, Ashfaak, maybe you should speak to Claudio and get him on the show sometime and get a few of the guys that he's managing so we can hear, from that perspective of motorsport again. Motorsport is not just the drivers. Motorsport is a lot of other facets that happens behind the scenes and a lot of interesting things that happens. And maybe we can hear from that aspect as well. But for future, Ashfaak, coming back to you, your first Formula Ford National was in Cape Town. You won Class B. How did this happen? Let us hear about that.
Yeah, so I didn't quite finish my introductory to motor racing,
Okay.
telling you where I was at the racing school. Yeah, and I was 17 years old when this Speed International Racing School started, and I entered for this thing. I had no money, absolutely no money. I went to my dad and I said, I want to do this thing. So my dad said, over my dead body, my son, if you looking for money to do something as stupid as this, go and find your own money. And that was the story of my life. As far as my racing career is concerned, my dad always told me, you want to go and race, you find your own money. So anyway, I found a way. I sold ladies' underwear. I did whatever I could. And I remember the price at that time was, it cost 1,700 Rand. I'm talking in 1987 to enter this racing school. 1,700 Rand was quite a bit of money then, and especially if you're not earning money. So I went and found that money and I did everything I could, and come what may, I was going to that racing school. Long story short, I got to the racing school on the day the course was starting. It was run by a gentleman called Brian Sims. Brian Sims was very instrumental in organizing. He was at Kailami before Dave McGregor, who's quite a big name, was. And Brian Sims used to bring the Formula One races to South Africa then. And he also incidentally worked for Benetton Formula One. He worked for Williams Formula One. So Brian Sims said to me, we have a problem. So I said, what is the problem? He said to me, you 17 years old, you need a driver's license to be here. I said, but I have a learner's license. So he says, well, you need to sign, have an indemnity sign. So I took this indemnity form, and at that time I lived in Cape Town already, and this was at Swartkops racetrack that this thing was happening. So I ran up the road to my cousin Abdul Jaffer. I said, please sign. So he said, your dad is going to kill me. So I said, I'll deal with that later. I went back there and Brian Sim said, I still have a problem. You don't have a driver's license. So I cut the deal with him and I said to him, I tell you what, let me go through the first round. If I'm crap, you kick me out and you keep my money. And lo and behold, I went through the first round and I won. I was the quickest. And also I was the youngest ever entrant in that thing. And Abdul, all around me, when I looked, it was just Group N racing drivers. This in itself was so intimidating for me because obviously I knew all these drivers because I used to go to the racetrack. Long story short, I think the finals I was leading, and I became a bit too ambitious, and I spun off and I went all the way back to 14th position. I worked my way back up to 4th position, and the winning prize was a works drive with BMW for a year, and a chance to go and race in the Formula Ford Winter Series in the UK, and also to test with Paul Stewart, Jackie Stewart's son, in his Formula 2 cars. So that was an opportunity missed. But immediately after that, I bought my first Formula Ford race car. It was a 1970 Merlin Mark II. And I had no money again. I did the same thing, sold whatever I could, and I bought this car. Long story short, I met Armin Levy. I had someone else, Malik Arnold, helping me at the start. I bought this car from a close friend of mine, Nasser Gul. Him and his brother, Aman Gul, were in Formula Ford. So I bought this car from him. I went to Armin Levy and I said, look, I need you to help me set up, take me around the racetrack and let me understand these single-seater cars. we did a few regional races. I had a big crash. I remember once out of turn 3. This was like on my second practice session. There were no wheels left on the car when I finished. So it was quite a heavy smash. And then we got the car right, and then the first national came. Lo and behold, I won. And I remember there was a newspaper article that said new sensation in Formula Ford racing. And they actually even stripped our cars at that national because they felt my car was going illegal. And I mean, I've got the oldest car on the field. And that's what actually motivated it. And my first time out in that Formula Ford car, my very first flying lap was quicker than the previous drivers ever did in a whole season whenever they drove. So I suppose, I don't know if it was youthful exuberance or luck or what it was, but that's what happened.
Ashfaak, you know what? Richard, I've known Richard Carr for a long time. I see he's in a wonderful comment there. I hope you're well wherever you are, Richard. Byron, maybe you must just address the comment that was sent in by Richard, or just address it with Ashfaak, if you don't mind.
Well, it's actually very appropriate because I was at the comeback itself. But Richard Carr says over here, last year, Ashfaak pedaled a Formula V at natural pace, top 10 times, around Killarney after years of being out of the single-seater, about 10 years to be exact. And he said, like riding a bicycle, quality of a true champ. I know they always say you never lose that. You don't go to bed one night and forget how to drive a racing car, but still to come back after 10 years, Ashfaak, and actually to put in some very quality times and good results, that's something to say.
You know, Richard actually tricked me into this.
Trust Richard.
I must tell you what happened. The race was on the Saturday, and I get a call from Richard and my good and close friend Rob Eloff. And they said, Ash, you're driving on Saturday. So I said, what am I driving? And they said, you're driving a Formula V. Now, I've never, ever raced a Formula V in my life. So I said, oh, okay. Let me think about it. So Rob says, no, you entered already. So I said, oh, okay. So when am I going to practice? You'll practice on Wednesday. Wednesday came and nothing happened. So Friday we pitch up at the track and the car is there. And I couldn't fit into the car. It doesn't really help in that Formula V to wear a size 10 shoe.
Which way couldn't you fit into the car? Sideways or front to back?
I was extreme. I mean, Richard could probably pull his hair out. But anyway, Richard said to me, you'll be okay in this car. You'll find your way. So I found my way. We had 2 practice, 10-minute practice sessions before qualifying. And I just said, Richard, I can't drive this car. I'm just too uncomfortable in this car. And came qualifying. We qualified second quickest. And I think the first race we had a problem, an electrical problem. And I think, Byron, you were there. The second race we started last. And we came all the way through to second position. And it was decent times, but I just wasn't comfortable in the car. But then they managed to manipulate me one more time and said, you're doing the next race as well. And the next race was quite interesting, I think, because Richard and Rob made me quite angry. I think we did the quickest time of the day on that race. I think it was a 23.7. And there's the top guy there is Byron Height. He did a 23.8. So
Byron Mitchell, I think.
Byron Mitchell.
I wish Byron Height was doing good times over there.
Byron Height.
Byron Mitchell. I'll point it out over there.
You know, here you are, you got a 50-year-old against, I don't know how old is this youngster, 18 or 19 or whatever, and quite a hot shot. You know, so yeah, that's Richard and Rob that conned me into this Formula V thing.
No, don't make Richard and Rob sound so bad. You don't need much conning to get into a racing car, Ashfaak. Come on. You know what?
Well, you know, the smile was there, but you know, coming from where you come, you always want to be well prepared when you go into something like this. And I must be honest, I after not racing a single seater for 10 years and jumping in and being right up there and competitive in a car you don't know, I think I surprised myself to a great extent, and probably a lot of other people. But I suppose it's like riding a bicycle. You know, it all comes back. It took a bit of a long while to come back. In fact, I think the one race I could have won, and I had Byron right in my slipstream. So I said, let him go by. I'm going to use him for the next lap. And as we came around turn 5, I looked and I saw the checkered flag, and I said, "Oh, cock! I forgot to look at how many laps were left." So those kind of errors came in. So I think by and large,
I just want to comment on I just want to give feedback on a comment by Hayden Elwood. Well, Hayden, I don't think you're going to see Ashfaak back in a race car on the circuit because he has found something way more interesting and enticing to do, which is called gymkhana. So I don't know what you guys have to pay him to come and drive that car next year. Just saying. I'm not going to say anything more than that. Ashfaak,
that's also another thing that I've been tricked into.
What is this now?
Gymkhanas.
Okay, wait. Okay, let's not go there quickly. Let's just ask you another question before we go to the gymkhana story. I wonder what tricked you into doing that. So in 1996, right? Or forget 1996. When your first national points in Formula Ford was scored in the wet at Killarney, when you didn't have the right tires. Am I correct? How did you manage to do that?
You know, Abdul, when I used to race Formula Fords, it was on the thinnest shoestring you could find. That was my budget. It was an extremely tight shoestring budget. And this national race, so, you know, you had to adapt and learn how to drive around problems. Now, in those days, we used to run Formula Fords on road tires, and we used to skim the tires, you know, 2 mil or 3 mil thread. But you always had a wet set where you could keep, and you don't skim those wet where the tires, so you have full thread so that it helps you. It was a national, so I decided I'm going to skim my tires to 2 mil. I want to try and have, and at that time I was quite competitive already in Formula Ford. I managed to get to the top 10 regularly in the nationals and so forth. And the rain came, which is something that I'm quite comfortable with. I think my best performances have come in the wet and in the rain. I think I had a very bad qualifying. I couldn't get a clean lap. I qualified around 14th or something on the grid. And Armin Levy was also in that race. So the lights went. I think Johan Fourie had pole position. Thomas or Toby Schechter was second. So it was a great crop of drivers. And the lights went, and I just managed to have a rocket start. I just came straight down the middle. From 14, turn 4, I was lying fourth, and when I looked to my right, I had Armin Levy next to me. But now I already realized that I've got no traction. My car's already aquaplaning on the straight. So I said, well, I know Armin. I'll use Armin as my buffer to help me go straight. So we were bumping each other all the way down to turn 1. And I was using Armin to keep me straight all the time. And uh, uh, anyway, long story short, uh, I learned one thing at Kilani. You know, the track kind of bows on the straights. So when you don't have proper wet weather tires, I used to drive smack bang in the middle of the track so that I avoid aquaplaning. And that's what I did. I kept that car on track in the wet, doing what I needed to do. And we managed to finish fourth or fifth in that race, which was it raised quite a few eyebrows, you know, because we had some top drivers driving Formula Ford. You know, within the first 14, 15 positions, you were always within a second of each other, and you felt pretty useless being within a second of the pole position guy. So yeah, that's what it is. And while we add that, you know, Formula Ford is something where if you can master driving a Formula Ford, you'll be able to drive any racing car anywhere. Uh, and that's the good thing about Formula Ford racing.
Brilliant. Such an intriguing story, Byron.
Sorry, look at those days, of course, when you started racing, Ashfaak. Some great drivers who went to Formula One did incredibly well in Formula Ford. Look at Ayrton Senna, of course, won the Formula Ford 1600 Championship and the Formula Ford 2000 Championship in 81 and 82. So it just shows you the caliber of drivers. And like you say, big fields and very twitchy cars and, you know, really gunning for it at the same time. But you know, that's what I'm thinking. You know, it's always one of some of the most exciting races for me in single seaters has always been Formula Fords.
It has, it is, you know, and you know, a Formula V. I drove this Formula V for the first time recently, Byron, as Richard. Thanks to Richard. A Formula V also very good, very close racing, but it offers a lot of grip, whereas a Formula Ford doesn't offer you that much grip. So, in my opinion, a Formula V is slightly overtired, not tired as in tire.
Like mechanical grip wise, because
Grip,
both have no wings on the front or the rear.
it has way too much grip. You know, it should be a bit more twitchy, and I see Rob Elof is passing a comment. That's also a very interesting one. So a Formula Ford will teach you how to drive. You know, you literally drive a Formula Ford with your back wheels. That's how twitchy it is, and it teaches you precision. And you've got to concentrate, and you've got to understand the car. You've got to understand things like weight transfer and braking and things like that. So that makes it very intriguing. I mean, even the greats like Michael Schumacher come out of Formula Ford and go-karting and things like that. So a very pivotal and important thing for Formula Ford. Anybody that's aspiring to go far in racing to experience a Formula Ford race car, preferably on road tires.
Ashfaak, you and Rob Elof go back along with ERA racing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
How did you actually, I mean, kind of how did you meet Rob? Because that's a very interesting story.
You know, Rob and I used to race Formula Fords back in the day. And, you know, I always admired the way Rob made a race car. I mean, you could literally eat off a car. And I always commented on that. And over the years, we became good friends. And when Formula Ford can stop, and when we were starting Formula Libra with Armin Levy, Rob Elof, and Dave Sinclair, starting Formula Libra, Rob came to me and said to me, "Ash, I'm a good car preparer. You're a better driver. I think we need to team up." So I said, "That's a good idea." And you know, Rob is not my friend. Rob is more like a big brother to me. We're friends for over 30 years. So he's not my friend. He's my brother. You know. and we've been through so much together. We've traveled a real long journey. We started off with one car as ERA Racing. We built it up to 5 race cars, where we used to hire 4 cars out and I could race for free. So we've really achieved a lot of our goals and dreams together. Things that seemed impossible. We've really made the impossible possible. And to realize that you got to pinch yourself a lot of the time to remember that you actually did that.
Ashfaak, so in 1996, something interesting happened. You were offered a drive with Formula Vauxhall, right? The Formula Vauxhall series.
Yes.
Well, you would have been the teammate to Ralf Schumacher, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me correct.
That's correct. What happened was there was a German journalist that, it was obviously at the time of the country becoming democratic in '94 and things like and so forth. So there was a German journalist who was a political journalist as well as a motorsport journalist. And he wanted to know if there were any drivers of color, if you call it, involved in motorsport in South Africa. Somehow he got channeled to me, and he did a whole profile on me, he checked things out and so forth. And he went back to Germany. I wasn't too sure what he was busy with, but he took photos and wrote up stuff and things like that. And he came back to South Africa and he said, I've got good news for you. So I said, what's the news? He says, here's a contract. I've got a contract for you to drive in the Formula Vauxhall series in Europe, teammate to Ralf Schumacher. So I said, oh, great. When do we go? So he said, you need 100,000 German marks, my friend, before you go. And in 1996, that was quite a bit of money. And in my racing all the years and things like, there was one thing I was never good at. I never understood what it meant to be a complete driver, and you needed to be marketable and so forth. And that part I lacked quite badly at that stage in my life. I was only interested in driving a racing car, so we tried a little, and we weren't successful in raising the money. So unfortunately, I had to give up that offer. And also, it was at the time where I think I got married. I had my first kid. My son was born in 1996. So there was quite a bit going on in my head. Obviously, priorities had to take precedence then. So that's it.
Well, what can I say? I was about to say, a lot was going on in your head, but you should have used. Let me not go there. Okay, so Ashfaak, Byron, do you have anything to add to the pot there for us quickly?
Well, I first want to take this comment over here, which I wholeheartedly agree with, from Mohammed Isat Isaacs, that Mr. Dawood is better than Lewis Hamilton. Now, I 100% agree with that. No, Lewis is good, man. He's good. But Ashfaak, never met Ashfaak before. I'm going to tell you that. And even a nicer guy, too, as well, Ashfaak Dawood. I'll put it at that.
Izad, actually, one of my latest students is Izad, and I must congratulate him on winning the Clubman's Class F championship this past week. So he's new to motor racing, and I've been giving him a bit of coaching, and he's done me proud. First new guy, and he's won. And I must tell you, this guy owns a burger place called Easy Burger. You haven't tasted a better burger than that in Cape Town.
So Easy Burger is in Belvedere, on the corner of Belvedere and
No,
not that one.
Easy Burger is in Weinberg and in Perro.
Oh, Weinberg in yes, in Ottery Road.
Yes, correct.
Near the pharmacy, in the near Flywell Travel Agency, am I correct?
Correct. That's it.
Oh,
That's
yes,
it.
that's around the corner from us. The burgers are absolutely outstanding. Trust me, guys. You should be going to Easy Burger in Ottery Road in Weinberg. You must make a concerted effort of getting there. Ashfaak, oh, Nadia Dawood, your sister, says hi. And my brother Khalil Sayed says Rob Elof is a perfectionist of note. Let me just tell you something. I saw your the Audi. What do you call this Audi? Ashfaak?
Formula Audi Palmer.
The Audi Palmer, yes. Pardon, have you seen that car?
I have, yes. And many years ago, when I was reading through Autosport as a teenager, I read about the Formula Palmer Audi series, and these cars looked amazing. And then I saw one when I walked into the garage that time when Ashfaak was coming back, that was a future car that he should be driving. So I do know it very well, and I'm looking forward to that. I see DJ Boyson is also saying, yeah, when can we see in a Formula VW scene? So maybe there's some more,
No, not soon. Not soon.
I'm too afraid of DJ and the boys.
No, just DJ, let me just tell you, I'm Ashfaak's new manager. None of this nonsense is going to gymkhana, please. So let's just put that to rest immediately. Ashfaak, I have a question for you. This is a controversial question. Formula Libre was started by Armin Levy, am I correct? And a few other people like Rob Elof and a couple of other guys, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I know from from history, there was a great rivalry between you and Armin Levy's team. You guys became bitter rivals. I want to just, I remember Armin Levy when I raced at Killarney. He was kind of one of the first people of color there, and you are, I think, if I'm not mistaken. That's kind of how we met, and I was driving Clubmans then. But take us through this story, because it's a very interesting story, this Ashfaak.
Yes,
because we're having the Levy family on the show very soon, so it's going to be interesting.
I started off with Armin Levy and raced with him for many years. He taught me a lot of good things and a lot of bad things too. Well, I wouldn't say bad things. He taught me how to make my car wider. In racing terms, you'll understand that when your car is wide, nobody's going to pass you. Absolutely. So, I worked with Armin for quite a few years, but then I was at the stage in my life where I felt I needed to discover more about motor racing. And at that time, Armin's team was growing quite substantially. I mean, he had the biggest single-seater team in South Africa. And I felt I needed to do something where I'm more involved and in touch. So I moved from Armin Levy to Mike Rabling, and then to Flip and Philip Fouché, who incidentally made Johan Fourie champion. They made up at least 4 or 5 guys South African champions. So I needed to learn and I needed to get insight. And Armin wasn't too happy with that. But I mean, we spoke and things. So obviously, then Rob and I got involved, and here I was, and there was the Levy team. So I'm one man, and there's the huge Levy team. But I'm always a guy up for the fight, and the fight started happening, and we had some really high-speed battles, and if I look at it today, I love Armin to bits. He's a great friend. We sit and we laugh a hell of a lot. But those moments where a lot, you get things where in moments in life where it's fight or flight. And Abdul, you know me, I don't walk away from a fight very easily. So I said, right, it's fight. And it was game on. Everybody that was involved in racing at that time, when the Formula Libre racing started, everybody was on the pit wall, because there's going to be action. You know, either I'm taking one of them out or they taking me out. But it was top notch stuff, and it was character building as well. For me, I looked at it as a character building session. You know, it's time to build, and there were some dangerous moments. There were some close moments, but in the end, you know, my friendship with Armin Levy still remains. We laugh a lot about all these things. We talk about it a lot, and but when the helmet comes, when the visor goes down, I mean, even up to today, when the visor goes down, and if Armin Levy is next to me, we're gonna fight. You know, and it's a friendly rivalry, and I think it's also a lesson for a lot of people on how to go about doing it. You want to fight, you fight, but you fight well. We push the boundaries a lot of the time, but you know, I think we know each other, we understand each other, so it's probably Armin Levy and maybe a few of the other guys are the only guys I would try push the boundaries with, because I know them and they know me. We know how far we could push each other. So uh, that was intense stuff. Intense. In fact, it's the stuff that movies are made of.
Well, Ashfaak, sorry there. Just coming in there, I've got two comments over here I actually want to address. The first one is a little earlier on. Rob Eloff put a comment. Hi, Ash. Don't forget the day you took a Witzenberg V8, the Witzenberg V8, out on the track. Now, I want to hear a bit more about that Witzenberg V8 that you took. So we move away from single seaters now to something completely different.
Sounds like a naughty story.
Again, Rob Eloff conned me into this thing. Rob's got a friend, Romano Sataro, that races Witzenberg V8s. He's got two Witzenberg V8 cars, and it was the nationals, the V8s at Kilani, and we went and visited Romano, and Romano was complaining about the car's handling and things like that. So Rob said, "Well, let Ash take the car out." So I looked at Rob. I said, "This is a Witzenberg V8." He said, "Yeah, you'll take it out." And completely unprepared. And here you had the likes of Ben Morganroot, Larry Wolford, all of them standing in the pit lane and watching this. And I said, I'm going to make a fool of myself here. Anyway, didn't even have my own overalls on and things. Jumped into the car and I went out and I think we managed to do 4 or 5 laps. And within that 4 or 5 laps, we came to within a second of Romano's fastest time. And the only thing that stopped me from going further was I was coming down the back straight, and that car had full digital telemetry and everything. It even gave you the speed. We were doing 278 k's down the back straight, and I hit the brakes, and the brake pedal went right down to the floor. You know, so somehow, with luck, miraculously, I found my way around turn 5. And when I came into the pits, people like Ben Morganroot and Larry Wolford, I won't use the exact words. They said, they asked me, did you drive a Witzenberg car before? So I said, no, never. It's my first time. So they were saying, not a FFF as die eerste keer wat jy 'n Witzenberg modified car gery het. So I said, it's the very first time. And they didn't believe that it was the first time that I jumped into a Witzenberg V8. So yeah, that was quite an interesting, but it was a frightening experience as well. I mean, the thing that helped me though is a year or two before, Johan Fourie used to race Witzenberg V8s. And I remember asking him, Johan, what's it like to drive this car? And Johan said to me, Ashfaak, ry die ding net soos 'n Formula Ford. And that's all I could remember. Drive this thing like a Formula Ford, and it worked. You know. Amazing. So yeah, that was the story with the Witzenberg V8.
Amazing. Ashfaak, there's a comment by DJ Boyson, who I've had the honor of meeting at the gymkhana once. Ash, what is your opinion for younger drivers coming from karting or saloon cars or open wheelers? What is your opinion for younger drivers? Yeah.
I'm a racing purist. And to me, a racing purist, you come from karting, you go into single-seater racing. You know, if your journey is to make it to Formula one day, that's where you need to be. And there's no better discipline than single-seater racing, in my opinion, that can teach you and groom you for those kinds of the pinnacle of motorsport. Of course, here in Cape Town at the moment, I think, in my opinion, the most competitive series at the moment is in Western Cape is the GTI Challenge racing. I think it's a winning formula, and it's building good drivers because you have the rules are clear. How you prepare your car, there's very little difference in cars, so you got to drive for your position. So right now, I think if you're in Cape Town, maybe GTI Challenge is an option, but single-seater is always number one, and it's going to teach you the most.
Ashfaak, I want to ask you one question. I remember I think it was 2006, if I'm not mistaken, you joined Fantastic Racing as the number one driver with those Dodge, those Barber Dodge cars. Was the V6s, eh?
Yes, they were V6s.
Yeah. How did that happen? Give us some insight into that part of your career.
Well, Doug McDonald bought this entire. It was the Skip Barber Dodge series in the US, and people like Juan Pablo Montoya, Dario Franchitti, all raced those cars. So Doug McDonald bought the whole series out in the US, and he brought these cars to South Africa. And he was going to use it for corporate events and racing as well. So they entered 10 Dodge Reynards for the Formula Libra race, and some top-notch drivers. And myself, and at the time, my teammate Ivano Malvero, who's also a former Formula 2 driver. He used to be teammates with Ian Scheckter, who is arguably, in a lot of people's eyes, better than Jody Scheckter was. And Ivano at that time, my championship winning car, Ivano said to me, Ash, I want to drive your car. You're going to drive my car. So I said, okay, fine. And these Dodgers came to South Africa, and I said, they're going to give us a hiding. We on for a hiding to nothing. So Ivano went out in qualifying, and I said to Rob, I only want 4 liters of fuel in my car for qualifying. So
Driving which car is this now?
In the Formula GTI.
Okay, so you're driving the Formula GTI, and you're driving against the Dodge.
Against the Dodgers, and Ivano is also driving my championship winning Formula GTI.
Right.
So Ivano goes out. The Dodgers were quick. Ivano goes out. Ivano gets pole position, and I said, I'm only going to do 1 lap. And it's at that moment where you got to really focus and do everything and put in the perfect lap. And it was like a miracle. It happened. I got pole position. Yeah. And we watched these Dodgers that day quite badly, and we had Doug McDonald come to us after the race, and Doug said to me, for some reason my battery went flat. I'm working on the technical issue. So Doug McDonald said to me, you paid for my image. My cars need to win. So I said, your cars will never win. So he said, why? I said, you got the wrong drivers in there. And so he said, well, will you drive my cars? So I said, yes, I will drive your car, but on my terms and conditions. So Doug then decided he's going to hire the track out for 2 days. and we had a shootout, and in fact he invited the late Neil Hawkins as well, and it was quite okay. You know, we had quite an interesting battle, Neil and I. He would go quicker, I would go quicker, and it went on the whole day. It kind of never stopped. So eventually Owen Ashley, Neil Hawkins worked for Owen Ashley, came and called him, said, right, that's enough, come, let's go. But Doug had something else up his sleeve. He was quite close friends with the British touring car, 4 times British touring car champion, Matthew Neal. And he flew Matthew Neal in as well. And he said, right, Matthew Neal is going to drive this car. When Matthew Neal can't go any quicker, you're going to jump into this car and you're going to see if you're going to match his time. So Matthew Neal practiced for a day and a half. And he said, right, now that's it. I can't go quicker. I jumped into the car. They said, same setup, everything the same. You don't do anything to the car. And within 3 laps, I went a half a second quicker than Matthew. You know, so, but he was quite a good sport. And that was actually quite a defining moment, because Matthew Neal actually came to me after that and he said, Ash, you can go and drive anywhere in the world. You know, so, and that's how I became the #1 driver with fantastic racing. Their whole, I think you did a corporate event with them, Abdul, where you drove those Dodges. So the whole training program and things is something that I was very instrumental in putting together, where we could literally teach people to drive a single-seater in 2 hours. So, yeah, that was the fantastic racing experience. And it was a fantastic racing experience. And yeah, I won a championship in that car as well. In fact, I drove the car that Juan Pablo Montoya drove. That was my race car. So it was quite interesting.
Very, very interesting. Byron?
Well, I've actually just seen a good comment over here. Shelton Davids said, I've seen Ash overtake a super aggressive aerial atom on the outside of turn 1 at Killarney. I remember the aerial atom actually partaking in a Formula Libre race.
Yes, that was David Jubé, I think it was. Yeah. And we allowed him to race the aerial atom, and it was an extremely quick car. And I was racing the Dodge at that time, and I said to myself, "There's no way I'm going to be able to beat this guy." He was just flying, and you know, I have this tendency when I'm racing against someone, I look for the strong points and I look for the weak points, and I picked up that he's not too strong on turn 1. And, you know, with the Dodge, as you're driving, you can adjust your brake bias and things like that. And because the Dodge is such a heavy car, I took a gamble and I adjusted my brake bias to the back while still in the slipstream, and darted out at the very last minute. But it was a do-or-die maneuver. I came around the outside, and I said, I'm just going to turn in and see what he does. And to my amazement, when I turned in, he went on the anchors, and I said, right, sorry, that's it. You're not coming past now. And that was, and David Jubé actually laughed about it afterwards, and he said, yes, he's a blitzer.
Okay, guys, we don't have much time, but there's 2 interesting things I want to touch on very quickly. One is, Ashfaak, I kind of coerced you into, is that the right word, Baden? Coerced.
You can't.
Yeah, well, you can't con a racing driver to get back into racing. It's coercement, if you know what I'm saying. You just put him in the right place at the right time. So we've been involved with the gymkhana, you know that, right? I mean, we've been friends for a very long time, me and you, Ashfaak.
Yes.
So I kind of got you back into, I found you one day, listen, Ashfaak, I need some help at one of the gymkhana events. And I can't even remember what it was. I think I said a commentator, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you said to me, we need a scrutineer.
That's what it was. Yes. It was like kind of a long-term plan here, Byron and Ashfaak. I must tell you this. I was very conniving. And I said the scrutineer, correct. And then from there, do you need to put in your power, Ashfaak?
Sorry, yeah, I'm looking for my power. Carry on, Abdul.
Okay, so yeah, but we can just see the back of you can see your ass. No, I'm just teasing.
That's like an answer then.
Well, that's kind of what most of the guys see when Ashfaak is past them. They just see the back of his car. That's kind of what it is. So, well, that's nothing unfamiliar. Anyhow, so I kind of coerced you into coming to help us at the gymkhana. And just at the last, well, then it was a scrutineer. Then you became a commentator, which was brilliant because you understood racing. You and Byron kind of commentary there, both of you. Brilliant commentators, by the way. And then I did something interesting the last time. I said, Ashfaak, come on, man. Let's take that Audi of yours, that RS, the S4. That little, the S4. Let's come and just test if the route's okay. And just maybe take us into and I remember your comment afterwards and you said, whew, I mean, I've been involved with circuit racing for a long time, but you guys are on another level talking about gymkhana. Just tell us a little bit about your experience with gymkhana and how compared to what the people think out there, what it is and what it really is when you drove. And then you had the opportunity of going again after our test session with one of our ex-champions, Rafik Furfri. Just give us a little overview of your thoughts of gymkhana and I'm sure you have a different respect for gymkhana drivers after that.
Well, most definitely, firstly, it's the absolute grassroots level entry to motorsport. Anybody, I mean, Byron sometimes drives with a Toyota Tez to come and do a gymkhana. And I mean, I look at the passion and the enthusiasm, there's no excuse for anybody that says I'm passionate about motorsport, but I can't afford it. It's something I don't also buy in. Like I said, my racing career, unfortunately, I didn't speak about all of it. I didn't have money, but I could. Gymkhana is exactly that. You can come and race with anything and everything. You can learn and hone your skills of gymkhana. It's obviously a discipline that's completely the opposite of what I'm used to and taught to do. But it's an absolute joy. It's cost effective, right? And when I look at the commitment of the top guys like the Leons and the Leon Engelbrecht and Rafik Furfure, their commitment, it just astounds me how good these guys are and the precision of their driving. I mean, you've got to know exactly the right point, when to pull up the handbrake, how much you need to pull up the handbrake, how to modulate the power, how much opposite lock and things like that. And these guys do it to perfection. And for anybody and everybody, I mean, we have ladies, we have competing. If you want to get involved in motorsport any which way, entering gymkhanas with your road car or a spare car or a bucky or whatever you want to come, it's the way to go. You got to enter it. And I said to you, Abdul, that I would never be able to do what you guys do, but when I took that S4, I had Rafik sitting next to me. And we had that S4 in some seriously good four-wheel drifts, and so now Rafik's taught me a thing or two, and I may just decide to use that S4 on gymkhanas now. But it's absolutely mind-boggling, and also it's a stepping stone to wherever you want to go. If you want to go into rallying, gymkhana is the thing to do. If you want car control, you want to be a better driver on the road, gymkhana is where you go. It teaches you about your car. It teaches you about car control. And the people, what amazes me most is the camaraderie. And the guys that are the pros in gymkhana are so approachable, so helpful. You ask them to take you for a spin in the car. Yeah, let's go. And that's what gymkhana. And I must say, Abdul, Byron, you guys and everybody at Witzenberg, you guys are doing an astounding job. I can only see gymkhana getting bigger, from here on. I mean, I think you guys have struck the right formula. We even get guys like DJ Ready D with his drift car and his drift squad people coming to enter Gymkhana. So that already tells you where it's going. So it's for anybody and everybody. Uh, and that's what I can say about Gymkhana. It's the most cost-effective way of going about motor racing.
Well, Ash, you you brought another dimension to Gymkhana as well, because it is, you kind of understand racing. So that's one of the reasons, besides the fact that I know you so well, I asked you to come and help you for a very specific reason. And you know what the reason is now. To entice you, not conning, to entice you. Byron, you want to address something quickly before I ask Ash the last question there?
Yes, I think Richard Carr's, another comment from him, seeing that we're speaking about the, cost effectiveness. Now, say somebody starts in Gymkhana and they want to go into a single-seater direction. And Richard says that being pro single-seater, do you think the current single-seater formulas is a good stepping stone versus tin tops, taking into account the cost of racing? So when youngsters want to come from a small formula, maybe not karting, maybe from Gymkhana into the circuit racing side, as far as single seaters are concerned?
I think Formula V is a brilliant place to start. It's probably the most cost effective in terms of racing. You can pick up a car from anywhere up to 30,000 rand to whatever you want to pay. And if you just look at the national Formula V series, I mean, it's nose to tail stuff, and it's not checkbook racing. You're gonna know how to drive a single seater, and just look up any Formula V race. That will tell you that's the cheapest. And like I said earlier, if you feel you want to go tin top, my opinion is the most competitive racing at the moment I'm talking Cape Town as a whole, is GTI Challenge. I think it separates the men from the boys, and that I honestly feel. Single seater Formula Libra, the Class C is primarily set up for Formula V's to national specs. So an excellent stepping stone to entry into motorsport. So I would stick to that, and that's probably the most cost-effective way. I mean, a Formula V, you could race with a set of tires for the entire year without having to worry. So
Okay.
yeah, I think that's where I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah. So just always, I left the best question for last, or should I say the most controversial question. So currently, motorsport in South Africa is not in a good state for various reasons. I mean, we can discuss this for hours. Forgetting what the reasons are, there are a number of reasons, from being too expensive to a myriad of other reasons. Why do you think motorsport is where it is in such a bad state? Why is it in such a bad state? And what do you suggest we do for future? What do you suggest how do we get it out of this deep, deep, deep hole that motorsport is in currently?
Gee, Abdul, I'm hoping to get a motorsport license for next year, and you're asking me a question like that. So, firstly, my honest opinion is you can't let administrators run motorsport, and unfortunately, the batch of people at the moment running motorsport South Africa are not motorsport people; they're administrators. they have a slight inclination of what motorsport is about. But you know, if you look at Formula One, if you look at the FIA, you have a person like Jean Todt and Ross Brawn running FIA and Formula One, and because these are people that know about motor racing, they've been there, they've done it, you know, and I think that's what's lacking in South African motorsport. You know, if tomorrow, if you told me Sarel van der Merwe is chairman of Motorsport South Africa, am I going to be worried? I'm
No.
not going to be worried because that's someone that you know knows motorsport and knows what motorsport needs. And I think what motorsport needs is people that are in the know. Uh, the second thing is motorsport has made a lot of mistakes along the way. You know, in the heyday of motor racing, uh, the late 80s, early 90s, the golden era of motorsport, which I was fortunate enough to be part of, uh, we had TV coverage. Now, this is a very important thing that a lot of people, I've heard quite a bit of your interviews, and a lot of people have missed this. You know, we had motorsport, we had live coverage of motorsport, Top Sport, SABC, Top Sport, crossing over live to Kailami now. I mean, I was fortunate in the sense that a lot of our races were broadcast live. We have these people of Motorsport South Africa that have sold the TV rights to Supersport for a small purse. You know, instead of saying, you know what, I mean, and Supersport itself has got a viewership of, I think, or membership to 1 million to 2 million or maximum 3 million. You know, whereas you have a channel like SABC, uh, they bankrupt anyway, but give them the rights to broadcast motorsport. You got a far larger audience, and immediately you're going to have people identifying. I mean, you can ask any jack in the street right now, who's the top racing driver in South Africa? He wouldn't have a clue. He wouldn't be able to give you an answer. But you talk about Sarel van der Merwe, Terry Moss, Chris Aberdeen, Dion Dubé, whoever. That's because we had Michael Briggs. We had the exposure. People could identify with our drivers then. So I think they've missed a big point there. The formulas are also wrong, you know. And like I said, even in the top motorsport factory teams, you know, if you have a certain surname, somehow another surname will pop up as a driver being a top driver. So I heard you say, Abdul, once, keep it simple. Uh, I won't say, yeah, maybe I should say stupid. Uh, and that's what's lacking. We need to go back to grassroots level, you know, and this live streaming and live broadcasting is now an ideal opportunity to get motorsport where it should be live. I mean, imagine watching motor racing live. So these are things we need to, you know, cultivate and tune in and make it marketable and make it attractive for people uh, to get back to the racetrack. But the most important thing is the formula, getting the formula right, keeping it simple. We have the formulas. There's few stumbling blocks. I mean, these top GTC series, it's a joke. You get the premier formula in South African motorsport where 3 cars are finishing a race. It's a joke, really a joke.
And then you become the champion.
And then you become the champion. So yeah, I mean, really speaking, our grassroots level racing in Cape Town, our clubmen's racing, our GTI challenge racing, our single seater racing, uh, are way better than and more attractive than the national racing. Besides the Polo Cup That's exciting stuff. But other than that, and the single-seater stuff, the Formula Fords, or Formula 1600, I think that's single-seater racing will always be great, no matter what, because it's the same make series, same engine. It's about car preparation and setup and driver. So you're always going to get single-seaters to be competitive. It's just a matter of packaging it properly and doing things the right way.
Brilliant,
And
Ash.
getting the right people in.
Yeah, I think it's important to get people that have got good intentions and that motorsport is a passion and not driven by the money, because I think that's a big issue. And if I look from us in Gymkhana, myself and Byron and the team, we don't get paid for what we do, but it's done because we are passionate about motorsport, and that's really what it's about. Byron, just your last thoughts before we ask Ashfaak for his last comments and then log off for tonight.
I think just to add to that, guys, I've been working for the last few years in the financial world and everything like that. So the understanding from my point is that if something becomes too expensive to do, people stop doing it. Less and less people do it. And that's unfortunate, but it's a harsh truth. And there's been a lot of arguments at the moment about people with lots of money, buying championships, buying things like SA colors and stuff like that. I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to mention any of it. It's happening. But unfortunately, if you buy a championship, you will still be known as a person who bought a championship. If you buy SA colors, you will always be known as a person who bought SA colors. And I'll leave it at that. There are many talents out there that are not getting the recognition they deserve. And it's sad, it's unfortunate. It's not only in South Africa, it's overseas as well. Ashfaak alluded to it as well. I always say, it looks like in Formula One, you either have to be a big name, be a junior driver, or have a billionaire father. One of those three, or at best, make it two of those things. But that's how it's become at the moment. And also, just one more thing from me. A number of years ago, Roman de Beer, a South African racing driver, raced in GP3, which is now Formula 3 in Europe, with the Grand Prix scene. And I think this was in 2014. He had to fork together 6 million euros or something like it, 6 million something, to race 10 races in GP3. Now that is something, that is just, who's got that money? Who can get that money? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks, Byron, for your insight there. Ashfaak, coupled to what you were going to say now, just you can tie it into what I'm going to ask you now. Motorsport development. I mean, both of us come from, and I don't mean this in any disrespect, Byron, but we come from a community that is not really au fait with motorsport that time, in the heyday of motorsport. Now it's a bit different story. I mean, if I look at the drags today, it's predominantly people from a different community that's partaking in drags today. Spinning. While some people don't say spinning is a motorsport, I'm saying it is because it attracts the community.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah, it keeps people off the road. So we have to accept drifting. So besides circuit racing and karting and the conventional motorsport, we know there are other forms of motorsport as well that's really attracting different communities to it. So from a motorsport development perspective, Ashfaak, just in closing, what are your views on that?
Abdul, I was privileged enough, besides racing, at one point, I was Formula Libra chairman for a while. And at that time, we had Brian Smith as chairman of the Western Province Motor Club.
Yeah.
And a man I really respected, because he allowed me a real open door policy where I could just barge into his office and just tell him whatever I wanted. And we started a development program with Kilani a while ago. Myself, Dion Jube, and Paul Simon that works at Kilani. and we got a whole lot of kids, and we did the indoor karting thing and so forth. We were very restricted with funds, and then at the same time, we used ERA racing as a platform to teach youngsters how to build and clean and fix up cars and so forth. And well, long story short, the product that came out of there is an earnest page. I'm sure everybody's heard
Yeah.
of earnest page. So earnest page was the product of that development that we did. And if you go out there looking for that, I mean, I remember taking earnest page. They built up a golf for the development thing themselves. We guided them, and I took Ernest Page out for the very first time on the racetrack. That was the first time out, and I mean, he had a smile from ear to ear. And there's a lot of talent out there, and we need to continue doing it. And again, with development, I think the way to do it, it's been wrong. I mean, Abdul, when you and I were there and they started with this development program, I remember when they started with the Isendo Sports 2000 development thing. Uh, at that time, I was in my 20s, and I went to them and they said, sorry, you got too much experience. Now, I looked at it at that time. Imagine taking me that had experience and pushing me further, all right, then bringing me back and say, right, teach the rest. Uh, we would have been so much further,
Absolutely.
and again, the wrong administrators there. You had the person that was in charge, somehow, some way, you'll see the name of a kid pitch up with the same name and surname. So that's the one thing. Then there were a lot of these bodies that were formed. I mean, I was never ever even invited to join these bodies or to any of these meetings that that were pro development. Uh, you know, people always. I mean, I'm saying this. People always told me you with the whiteys. You know, uh, and I took offense to that. I mean, because I look at people as human beings. So we God is one. So God's creation is one. We all come from one creation, and we are all belong to one creation, and that's the human race. You know, and my firm belief is, if you are born in South Africa, you are African. Whether so, our freedom charter is seriously flawed in the sense that it says we are non-racial. By that very definition
Correct.
of saying
Correct.
we are non-racial, you're already saying that you are racial.
Correct.
Racialistic or racist, whatever you want to call it. And my firm belief is that we firstly need to teach human beings how to live with other human beings. That in itself is a development, and once we understand living with one another, that we are exactly the same, barring a few things, development can go further. There's an understanding, and we could move forward. I mean, I look at the friendships I forged over the years. I started racing in the apartheid era, and
Correct.
I mean, my closest friends are people that were previously advantaged. Now I call my dear brother or currently disadvantaged. Uh, you know, but that's what it's about. It's about forging relationships with people. It's about people understanding people. And Abdul, while we at this, my priorities in life have changed quite a bit over the years. Where I'm busy, I'm involved with NGOs. I'm uh, an executive member of the Mustadafin Foundation that feeds 15,000 people a day, every day, all year round. We run 22 early childhood development programs around the poorest of the poorest areas in the Western Cape. So you get exposed to those kinds of things, and then you understand what life is and what's needed. So I think from a motorsport development point of view, the wrong people are heading development. You know,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
I'll say it tonight. Those people that are supposedly running or pushing for development, I think they need to also lighten up and understand. You know, racism doesn't come from one side; it's a two-sided thing. You know, so if you're saying those whiteys are racist, right? By the very definition of you saying that you are racist,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
So I think that kind of thinking needs to be cleared up, and we need to understand things and put things in proper perspective. Motorsport has a great future if the right people get involved.
Absolutely. And you know what? There's an interesting.
I can say this platform is the right platform. I mean, we so diverse. I mean, I look at the gymkhanas; it's so diverse. It's the starting point, and it needs to be carried on all the way.
Absolutely. And just as a matter of interest, if you come and join Gymkhana and you bring any politics with you, you're not allowed to drive at all. You come there to have fun. Our number one rule is to have fun. We don't want to have politics. We don't want to have controlling bodies. We don't want to have checkbook racing. None of that stuff. You come here to have fun. Bottom line. If you come with an attitude, you actually don't even come back the next time.
And come with a lot of passion, Abdul.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's really, and you know what, Richard Carr, brilliant comment. The past 9 hours at Killarney proves that there is not a lack of funds for racing in Africa. MSA should be managing the national formulas more effectively to attract more public interest. That's another discussion for another time, but something we have to think about, guys. Everybody that was on the show tonight, besides Byron and Ashfaak, thank you so much for being here. The two of you, as know my co-host Byron and my good friend Ashfaak. But what an interesting and insightful story, and another brilliant spin on motorsport from a different perspective. And hopefully, I'm going to get your rivals on the show next week, Ashfaak, the Levy family, except Armin, because I'll get the children first and the grandchild. He was the new, I think, SA karting champion. From what mistaken, yeah,
brilliantly done, Riza Levy.
Yeah, and that family, it's their third generation. So it's Armin, his children, and his grandson now that has won the championship. So hopefully, if I get some communication from them, we can get something going there. And for all the people that commented, thank you so much for being part of the show, episode 10. And we hope to have many, many, many more of these brilliant shows with brilliant people on the show to give us a lot of insight to motorsport. And, you know, I've of the belief that motorsport is going to flourish once again with the right people leading from the top. That's most important. And let's do it for the passion and not for the money. That's most important as far as I'm concerned. And thanks for everybody for joining in tonight. Thanks for tuning in to YouTube and Facebook and all the social media platforms. And we will soon know the dates for our future Gymkhanas. Just waiting on Killarney, your good friend, Mr. Paul Simon Ashfaak, to send me an email. We're patiently waiting here to get the dates for 2021. But thanks so much for everyone, and see you guys soon. Cheers, and subscribe to our channel, guys.